Good afternoon, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission. It is Thursday, July 17th. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioners Derhavanessian.
Here.
Kivanian.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Sharikian.
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver.
Yes.
The agenda for the July 17th meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on July 11th, 2014.
Next item.
Item 2, consent items. At 2A, approval of meeting minutes from June 19th, 2014.
Do we have comments or motion? Commissioner Kavanian?
I will move the minutes.
I have some questions.
Commissioner Derhavanessian?
I need to open up to the page. There was on page 2, item number D, it says that staff can assign projects or have the chairperson do certain activities. I wanted to see if these actions and decisions are done behind the closed doors, or the request comes to the commission and on this dais it's discussed so the other commissioners are aware of the projects and the program.
Is this related to the minutes?
Yes. Well, it's part of that, isn't it?
Is it something reflected in the minutes that you want changed or you have a question about? Because we'll be talking about the approval of the procedures later on.
Good. Let's take it later.
Other comments on the minutes? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioners Derhavanessian.
Yes.
Kivanian.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Sharikian.
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver.
Yes. And I'd like to take an item out of order, moving business agenda item 5A1 next after our second item.
Item 5A1, business agenda, action item, motion recommending approval of proposed new public art plan by Scott Ray for Legendary Tower project located at 300 North Central Avenue.
Thank you. As the Commission knows, one of the development design standards for private development in the city is to provide art on site or make an in lieu payment in our Urban Art Fund. Legendary Tower developer has chosen to provide art on site, and in 2010, the Commission and the Council approved a public art plan for this project as part of the final project approvals. Concerns with security and engagement of the public art component led the developer to consider a different artist and to really think about a different type of an art plan. And they've worked with the Do Art Foundation to secure an artist for a new proposal before you today. Staff from Arts and Culture, the Design Studio, and Community Development has reviewed and recommends approval because staff believes this new art plan meets the goals and intent of the public art program, but it also creates an engaging and changing public art experience for the community, which is really important part of this program. Serge Soni, who represents Legendary Development and the project, is going to give you some more information about this public art plan, their goals, as well as the art plan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Annette said, my name is Serge Soni. I'm a managing member of Legendary Development. We're the developer of the project at the corner of California and Central, northeast corner. Tell you a little bit about that project.
Hello? Okay.
The project sits, it's a mixed-use project. It's 80 units of residential over commercial. It hugs the corner. It's an urban project, so it's lot line to lot line. It's lot line to lot line. The proposed art would be housed in the public space, which is dedicated for community use, at the corner, at the very corner of California and Central. So if you take a look at that, we're looking at that corner with the eyebrows over the glass doors and openings. The adjacent to that public space along Central is a cafe, which has doors that open to the public space, so there's spillover and an opportunity for the community to enjoy and benefit from that space more completely. And along California, immediately next to the public space is a commercial unit, and then after that, the lobby. and then additional commercial units beyond that. So you have a ribbon of commercial space along Central and along California, aside from the lobby entrance. So that's the setting that we're working in. The public space will be open during daytime hours and later into the evening, probably as late as the cafe remains open, which we suspect is probably going to be around 10 o'clock, but we don't know yet. The 6 entrances are openings in that public area space, 2 along Central, 4 along California. And because art is going to be housed there, because there'll be furnishings there, we'll need to secure that after hours. So in order to make that work and still have the ability to enjoy an experience and have the effects of the art continue out into the community, though our current plan is to use glass doors that can close and still give us a view into that space. Now, the prior art submission that we provided had a series of objectives. We wanted a work of art that would be consistent with a modern urban design of the project. We wanted one that engaged with and responded to the viewer and wasn't merely passive. We wanted a work that the public would want to return to, not one of those pieces of work that you've seen once and there's no reason to go back, and would hopefully provide a different experience each time. And then more important than that, lastly, we wanted the viewer be able to develop a relationship with that art and its ever-changing experience, in that people would want to keep coming back to this space. Now, those are pretty lofty goals for a work of art, but clearly these dynamics led us to digital art as the only possible art that is going to actually achieve all of these goals. We initially engaged with Michael Hayden, who is a noted artist. He did the luminetric art in the Chicago O'Hare Airport, in the United Terminal, in this, when you go between the 2 terminals, that crazy lights over the walkway. It was interesting. It's been there for over 25 years. It's been resilient, and it always provides an experience, but it's the same experience. Michael, working with us, came up with an idea for an art that would be housed in the airspace above the public space. Just to give you a better flavor, this space is 20 feet wide, 23 feet tall, and about 55 feet deep. So you've got a long rectangular space with great volume. When Michael played with this, he came up with the notion that he'd like to house something above the space, and it was going to be a series of light elements, light sticks, LED sticks, each one 36 inches long, each one having 36 LEDs. There would be 66 of these. He intended to have each one of those LEDs addressable by computer, by digital signal, and they can change color, red, green, blue, and any shades in between, with the benefit of digital control. And the notion was that algorithms would be created so that these light sticks would create different experience. There would be wave flowing through. There would be any number of possible ways in which the light sticks could react to people and could be experienced by people. We liked the idea. It was a very good idea. But as we began to work through the process, we realized that from a experiential standpoint of a stranger, a citizen coming into that space, what do they really experience? What do they see? And we came to the conclusion that there were a series of concerns that we had with this piece of art. The concerns fell into 4 basic categories. One was, can we protect the art? How do we do that? This is rather an intriguing field of light sticks, and frankly, young people or others may choose to see whether they can reach it with a hockey stick or something like that. And we were concerned about protection. We were also concerned it may not be engaging enough. It was too abstract in many ways. We were also concerned about whether we could provide sufficient variability so people would want to keep coming back and experiencing that. And then finally, frankly, and this is input that came from our interior designers, they reminded us something that we frankly forgotten the design of the art. We were dealing with a residential community, and this has a very institutional feel. This would be fine in a corporate lobby or in an airport or in a major mall, but in a more residential type of a community, we needed something a little bit more warm, a little more organic. And so that led us to the Do Art Foundation, after we made efforts with the artist to try and evolve his original concept to address our concerns, and frankly, we hit a brick wall. And that's no reflection on Michael. He's a wonderful artist, but we just couldn't get past some of the concerns that we had. So we engaged Do Art Foundation, which is locally based, and they serve as art consultants and as representatives. They're a nonprofit. They have worked in the public art space. They have worked with a number of different organizations. They're very fortunate to have Tanner Blackman, who is a board member. He's a planning director down at the Office of the City Commissioner and Jose Huizar's office. And the executive director of Do Art, Carmen Sella, is here with us. And with her help and with Do Art's help, we began to explore other alternatives. Now, a little bit more about Do Art, and she can come back up and tell you more about their organization, but they've worked in the Fashion District, they worked in South Park, in the Melrose District, and the Arts District. And they have current projects going on with Robert Montgomery that run through August of this year. They had an earlier project with Dulce Pinzon that ran through January of this year. This one is very close to my heart. The building to the left with the full body tattoo is one of our projects, is one of our buildings. It's located downtown in the Toy District, very close to the homeless district as well. It's a commercial building that for many years has suffered vacancy, and there wasn't much to draw people to it. We invested in retrofitting the building completely, gutting it and bringing it back up. It's coming out as creative office space and retail. There's already a restaurant that's rated by Zagat as one of the best burger joints in the country. There's a microbrewery going in. So we're revitalizing the concept. But we still had to deal with the face of this building and what to do with it. And with the help of Do Art and some fabulous artists, muralists that came up from Brazil, we transformed it. And I understand that this is the largest mural in Los Angeles. Is that still right? Until next week, at least, we'll see. So Do Art's been very, very helpful, and then they were super in terms of both finding the artists, qualifying them, getting them focused on the criteria of the project, and then getting execution done. And that was very, very important for us, because we're developers. We're not artists. The project criteria we came up with, refining what was earlier accepted and had been our targets and not leaving any of those behind, was that this needed to be an art piece that was approachable by the community at all ages. This needed also to have significant interactivity with the art. It had to be compelling and engaging. It had to be mood and ambient settings, and it had to be something that we could maintain over a long period of time. With Do Art's help, we considered a number of submissions. I think we had 6 or 7, if I'm not sure. And all of them had merit at different levels. Not all of them satisfied all of our requirements. I'm happy to say that we finally were able to find Scott Ray. And Scott's been wonderful in terms of working with us and refining the concepts. And a little bit about Scott. He's an acclaimed multimedia artist and director. And he has particular skill in underwater photography. He's done a lot of different projects all over the country. And as a sample of some of the things that he's done that are, if we can dim the lights a little bit more, that would be helpful, I think. This is an underwater scene that he somehow managed to stage, and I have no idea how he did it. But I certainly wouldn't want to be one of the people in there. Some wonderful photography, some great ideas. And these are just a few illustrations. Frankly, he sent us way too much, and I said, no, we don't have that much time. So with Scott's help, we developed the new project concept. And the concept was, and is, that within this space, we're going to have 3 screened surfaces, 2 suspended from the ceiling, relatively close to the ceiling, so they're up there, 22 feet. They're 6.5 feet by 13.5 feet in size, so they're sizable, they're significant, they're going to make an impact. And then there will be a screen against the far wall, the 20-foot wall. That wall is 20 by 23 feet tall. And these 3 screens will host images and imaging and activity and interrelate to each other. So images can move from one to the other to the wall. They can be reacted with and caused to change by reacting with the screen that's on the wall. Ambitious. But it can be done. What the art is, the intent is that you will have the experience of being underneath a swimming pool looking up from the bottom when you look at the ceiling. And there will be water movement and talent, ink, colors, all kinds of neat things happening, and they move from screen to screen. And they're interactive, so if you do something with the wall screen, it will transfer and move up and around and greet people. We're also including interactivity where the space will recognize when you've come into it and react to you. So, for example, if there's a swimmer in the screen above the ceiling and you walk into through one of the portals, that swimmer may suddenly stop, turn, and swim towards you. Just a fun thing to do. The abstract use of this would be the ability to mix ink with water, to have lateral water disturbances. You move your hand from left to right, creating ripples, extending to the other side of the screen and maybe moving to a different screen. Point of view from the bottom of the tank looking up, where there's disturbance of the water, allowing rays of light to penetrate. There could be divers that enter the water, causing a disturbance. Really some fun things that people will want to come in. And you'll never get to see the same thing twice. Because each of these are done in small segments, they can be mixed and matched at any time and randomly presented, so your experience is always different. You never know what's going to happen. And whether you're a 4-year-old that walks up to the screen on the wall and does one of these and causes things to happen, or 83 years old and sitting there, it's going to be fun. Among the things that I like, and I'm hoping we get it when we get done, is I would love the fact that we walk in and decide to have a coffee at one far end of the cafe, the swimmers come over and join our conversation. Wouldn't that be fun? So we have a lot of potential here in terms of the things we can do. When we use talent, again, the talent can be moving around, swimming, they will be doing things, and he has the ability to kaleidoscope these images. He has the ability to take one big 13.5 screen and break it into a series of smaller screens, so you have replication. There's so much potential in terms of what we can accomplish here from an artistic and content standpoint. We're very, very, very excited with this. Let's see if we can get this one to work. Nope. What you're seeing is a work of art that Scott did in connection with Flux, which was a event here in North Hollywood, right? And in that particular presentation, he had a huge one wall, correct? 30-foot wall in which this was being presented, and it was just a showstopper in terms of everybody wanting to just stop and experience. He has the ability to make it go slow, go fast, change the rate of motion, kaleidoscope. The interesting thing about a work like this is it's both engaging but not so demanding of your attention that you can't do anything else and be uncomfortable in the space. And frankly, if I had to have a meeting, I think it'd be fun to go there. It's the intention that there will be fresh content created for our project. But this is a sampling. I think you get the flavor. We've got another minute, and I think we can use it better elsewhere. Let me get you back to where we were. Great. So Scott comes up with brilliant ideas and very clever execution in terms of the art. But we're dealing with a digital project that needs a technical execution as well, and we need to be sure it's resilient and can stand on its own 2 feet. And for that, we brought in a technical team with some tremendous credentials. It's called Toy Shop Systems. I wasn't sure we were going to have one of their representatives here. It doesn't appear that he is here today, but they've done the Super Bowl halftime show, so they know what they're doing. They've done lighting and electronics for Tron, the Legacy, the Ascension Crane at Coachella. They're a presenting partner at Singularity University. So these people really have the know-how on how to do it. We should try and get this one down.
Hello, I'm Brendan with Toy Shop Systems. This is Will and Evan are helping us with the technical side of this project, the interactive body. And here we have a brief demonstration of the possibility of that.
So currently we've been prototyping and plan to develop in a software package called Touch Designer, which is quickly industry standard for interactive and performative arts. Modular system, take inputs from movie, infrared sensors, cameras, and then link it all together, convert the data to whatever you want, and then it shows up on screen. So currently we have it plugged into this short-range hand gesture detector, and as he's moving, you can see the bar graphs on here moving, showing the various parameters. And then currently I have that plugged into a deformation with semi-fluid deformation of a grid pattern, just as a demonstration. And also, when a hand enters the scene, it triggers a burst of bubbles. And then when he removes his hand, the bubbles will stop. And then, as you can see, the bubbles that started on this screen are still floating up here because it's all one continued environment. So now that's the end of that trail. And then if I were to bring my hand back in, you would see the burst of bubbles start here, and then it'll slowly they go up and they show up in the next window, as if these are two windows into the same pool of water. And that can be scaled infinitely up, infinitely out, however you want. And that can be then layered with pre-generated content that an artist has filmed, pre-rendered animation.
Enough tech talk. So we clearly know that we've got an artist that has the background in being able to execute really wonderful imaging. We know that we have a tech team that can help us bring this to reality and can make it work on a regular and resilient basis. We're talking about art that's going to be active from probably 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning on through late in the night. That's very demanding. We know that we have achieved all of our original expectations and targets and objectives, as well as all of the new ones. So we're very excited. We're here today asking for approval of this revised art plan. I think we're in the unusual situation of asking to do more rather than less. But we're very happy with where this is going. When this is done, I don't think there is another art piece or facility or space anywhere in Los Angeles, California, and maybe you guys know anywhere in the country, that is as elaborate in terms of creating a work of art that's interactive, that's engaging, that's available, that's constantly changing, and that's going to be fun to come to. And that's what we want to achieve here. We want this to be a really fun place. If you have questions, Carmen is here to answer for DuArt, and Scott Ray, the artist, is here too. He flew in from Seattle in case you have anything in particular you needed to ask him.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Havanassian.
I have 2 or 3 little questions. It's phenomenal, beautiful, exotic. I mean, I cannot put enough adjectives for this kind of a project. Questions. Maybe I didn't understand it well, though. Is it manned all the time? Is there a kind of a control, whatever, or it's programmed for monthly or weekly that they have to check on it? The repetitions, what are the intervals and repetitions? And if it is on a kind of computer system that is already kind of adjusted, if we have power shortage, again, what happens to that?
Very good questions. We have answers for some, not all. A piece of art, a project like this, is in a constant development until we get to final. What is envisioned is that the content is going to be housed on a computer. We expect to have that computer located in the leasing office so that it's physically secured. The imaging that starts there will be in any one of a series of different modalities. So you may have version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, and it'll begin to run. So it'll run some of this content through all the way, unless it is interrupted by interactivity, which then suddenly changes everything. We also want to recognize that we don't want this thing running if there's nobody in the space and nobody using it. So we have sensors that'll recognize that people are there. Remember, these are sensors that also recognize when you've come or when you've left. And hopefully we're going to have nice snippets that can be shot for use in particular circumstances. Somebody comes in, perhaps they can recognize that location and turn to them and look at them, kind of wave at them or whatever. I don't know. That's Scott's realm to come up with it. From my standpoint, I know we will have a series of different modalities that we can switch to. We can go to pure ambient. We can go to silence if there's nobody there. And then when somebody comes, it can activate. It can be there for short periods of time and then switch back and forth. But we'll have to program that as we get there.
And as far as the power shortage, the whole thing stop?
Well, we're in an 80-unit mixed-use building with commercial units, so we've got pretty robust systems. But clearly, if the city goes down, we go down. And I don't think people will be standing there watching videos at that point. They'd be happy to get out of there and get back to their
I do
homes.
believe with all that many units, there must be a big generator also, because to keep all the elevators and et cetera going
Yeah,
on.
the essential
so-
activities will be there. I can tell you this will not be considered an essential activity that we would keep running.
but it seems phenomenal. I hope that this is put in place because then people from other places will come just to see what phenomenal things we have, and your artists would be also promoted more than what they are at this point, and it's great. It is very calming, beautiful. I have not seen something of that nature for quite a while. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I have comments, but
Jackie?
not questions. But maybe I can ask Scott if he's going to maybe later talk. I don't know. Well, let me start. Most important question. When and how did you come up with this idea?
Well, it all started, I'm from Louisiana, and it started a few years after Katrina. I had a lot of friends and family that lost property, and I woke up in the middle of the night and started journaling ideas and jumped in a pool, and it just kind of opened the can from there. So,
Okay, so what was personal experience led you to this kind of creativity?
Exactly.
Sounds
exactly.
good. Sounds
and then
good.
each time it grew larger and
Of
larger,
course.
and I just kind of kept putting myself up against the wall, trying to go bigger and bigger with it. And the last time we shot, we had a crew of almost 70 people. We had 2 80-foot cranes, a lot of preparation. So the payoff is huge. You know, the amount that goes into this when you see it in the end. It's fantastic.
My questions has nothing to do with approving or disapproving. You're approved. Let me put it that way. But my questions is the interest behind it that I have. So many questions from the presentation, which is technical, all the technology, and this is a groundbreaking technology. And if there is none in LA County or anywhere in Southern California, so Glendale is one of the most advanced art location for this kind of technology. So that's a big plus for us. Thank you. And I'm assuming to prepare those things, you must have, I'm continuing. You must have a big crew or staff that can take all those photo shoots, preparation, and then you got to transfer all those information into the art, the technology. So therefore, it's not just one team working, probably 2 or 3, maybe more.
Yeah. It's quite a few teams because the art it takes a number of levels from concept to execution. So we start with the concept. What do we want to do? And that's what we've done. Is hey, what would look fantastic here? And then we go and we engineer it as to how it would be executed. So we brought in Toy Shop who will help us with all the programming. So I sit down with them and go, hey, what if we have a swimmer that swims by? And then we can also use her where she swims by and breaks into a kaleidoscope of, say, 12 images. And then at one point, maybe she's interactive with the wall screen. So we're able to kind of repurpose some of the visuals, but only if it can be tactfully done and necessary. But there's just a wealth of ways that we can put all the content together so it stays very fresh.
I want to also add one point. In 10 years, this might be boring, but you have the technology that will come up with new ideas. For example, a man in the air or in the smoke or whatever. I mean, the swimming pool or the pool idea will probably vanish at one point, but I'm sure you have the imagination and you have that creativity in your mind that you can come up with zillion things, and I can see that by your expressions. One last thing. Who's going to put those content? Are you going to be the content input, all those information in the system, as Annette asked you or asked him regarding who's going to be in control, what program is going to be during what month or what year?
Right. I will create all the content. A lot of the content's already been mapped as far as what we'll execute.
Okay.
So we'll execute it. I will edit it. And then there will be the interactive component, which we'll work with Toy Shop on. And I've already spoken in depth with Toy Shop on, hey, what about this? What if we have someone walk up and a droplet drops down, suspends, and you're able to move that droplet by using your hands. And the harder you move it, the faster it moves. And finally, it hits a wall and explodes, and you have droplets of water coming at you. And then you could hold your hands up and actually deflect them. So we've had conversations like this of how we can work with the programming. So,
4D effect.
Yeah, pretty
4D
much.
effect.
No, you're a part of the art.
Yeah.
And that makes it very experiential. So if you want to be passive and just view it, that's one thing. Or if you want to jump in and be interactive with it, there's another.
One of our mission statement in our mission is the experience of art in Glendale. So therefore, this will be an exquisite type of experience. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
I think a part answer also to your last question is that in execution, after Scott's completed his work of providing us fantastic content and helping us edit it into sequences that are acceptable then Toy Shop will help us arrange those sequences in a series of different modalities. And then our actual execution on the property is within our control as a developer. And we're not just a developer, we're the property owner. This is a portfolio asset. We intend to hold this. This is one of our pride and joys. We love the jobs we do. We put our heart and soul into it, and this is one we intend to continue to own. So we want to draw people to it and make it work. So we'll have that ability. And you're right, at some point, this will get tired as a theme, but we have the infrastructure to change the theme. All we need is either Scott or another artist come through with a different concept and content, and we can execute. Now, all of this is very, very cutting edge, but it's also very doable. Your children play Wii on their TV sets, and that does a lot of the things that we're doing here. But this is being done to a much higher degree and with much more sophisticated content, which is really a fun way to go.
Other questions? Commissioner Gavanian.
Just a comment. I love projects like this because I can use non-political terms like cool and awesome. This is an amazing project. Kudos to you, Scott. In 2010, when we first saw this project, we were all kind of taking baby steps as a commission towards making decisions like the one we have now in front of us. And of course, we don't know really how to react to that. So anything that we had in front of us that was arts-oriented, we immediately jumped at enthusiastically. But I'm so glad that this project has taken this kind of a transformation and an evolution. And it's just fantastic to see. And of course, I think that you're going to get a resounding approval for this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lee.
I think Commissioner Shurikin was trying to ask, after maybe a few years, will you be revamping or modifying?
I think we probably will. We'll gauge the public interest.
Okay.
One of the things, frankly, that we've been talking with Carmen about is we have 3 large screens with a great deal of technology. We can curate a great deal of digital art, all kinds of art. I've also recognized there's a lot of free video feeds that are really fantastic and educational. NASA's got a great channel with tons and tons of content. I have it on my iPad. I know many of you probably do too. And what a wonderful experience through space instead of water. So there's so many things we can do. We don't want to tie ourselves down with commitments and how long it'll last. It'll last as long as the public likes it. And when people get tired and we begin to hear too many comments that are negative about it, we'll have to move on or give Scott a chance to refresh it. But we love working with Scott. He's been a lot of fun. He's been very open. We've been pretty demanding in terms of our expectations. And everything we ask for, he says, well, theoretically that's doable. Now let's see how we can do it. But I think Carmen and Duarte have done a great job in terms of pulling together a fabulous artist, a really tremendous tech team. I know in having worked with them on our Boyd Street project that they can manage the execution with us. We have a lot of work yet to do. We have to figure out infrastructure, electrical supply, support, protection, cleaning, suspension systems, structural, all kinds of other things yet to be done. But before we get any further, we needed to close the door on the past and recognize that that was a limited idea that didn't go far enough, and this one, I think, delivers on the promise and the wish and the hope that we had. I'd ask the Commission to please approve us.
Commissioner Dohavanassian.
Actually, I was going to comment the same things that you said. You said it much better than I could, because as an artist, I do believe that when one comes and looks for this kind of an art and introduces this kind of an art to our community, naturally, as even you mentioned, the sky could be the forest and God knows whatever is around us. But this kind of an art could live for quite a while because it's such an interactive way of having individuals having a part in it. They move things, they shake things, they create things with the electronic system and the art. So thank you very much. I absolutely like what you're doing, and I hope everybody else, I do see all the...
If you'll allow, I'd like to step outside of my presentation for a minute and share with you. I'm not sure Annette's going to like me for doing this, but I'll mention it anyway. One of the things in our exploration of what we could do with art, this is an inward art to the public space. And when we were chatting with Scott and working through the different alternatives, he came up with some ideas, some fabulous ideas for an outward expression towards the community. Let me back up here for a second to the first slide and just tell you what it is that he had thought of, and then you can tell me what your thoughts are. Hold on. If you look up on the screen, what you see along the ground floor is all glass walls. It's not relevant to the art component, but one of the things that we wrestled with when we designed and developed this building was how do you deal with this massive structure on a postage stamp in an urban setting, and how do you deal with the mass? And one of the things we came up with together with our architect, which was, I thought, very clever, is that we made light of it. Literally, we made light of it. In the nighttime, in the evenings, the ground floor lights are on. It gives you the impression that this huge, monstrous, large building is floating above the ground on light. It's a fun expression for the building. We're very excited about it. We're looking forward to how that executes itself. But those, as I told you, that height to that first crossed white beam is 23 feet. The doorway entrances are 8 feet. So that rendering is not quite accurate. The eyebrows are much lower. From 8 feet to 23 feet, we have a glass face over those 6 entries. Scott came up with an idea for projecting against a film images that could be seen from the world outside. I don't know if you want to share with them some of your ideas about what you had there, but I shared with Annette. This is way outside of our budget for this project. But if the city is interested, I'd suggest to Annette, we would love to engage Scott to come up with a program so we can use those 6 very large openings above the thing and project out to the world something even more interesting and really make this a public space. Because that corner, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be welcoming to the public. Let them come in. We've talked to Public Works about whether they will let us carry on the floor patterns that we do inside the public space out into the public sidewalk and into the corner to suggest that we're a continuation of that space. But those are some thoughts. Scott had some crazy ideas. You want to tell them yourself? I don't think I can describe it.
I'll be brief, but a couple of the ideas that we thought about was using a film over all the glass windows that you can't perceive. It just looks like a clear window. But with HD projection from the inside out, we could actually have images run from one window to another throughout the building, or come on all at once, or actually become interactive on the sidewalk. So we could actually, people that are walking down each side of the sidewalk can interact with things that are on the concrete. So it would actually tie, we would think this out and tie all the content that's inside the building to the outside of the building and make it just that much of a larger project.
Thank you. Were there other comments or questions? Commissioner Lee?
In regards to the concept placement, were you leaning toward?
Oh, there will be furniture.
Yeah, there we go.
The space will be furnished. It will be comfortable for people to sit.
Oh, okay. So will it be more furniture, or because your other renderings had empty space? So
yeah, the rendering was the new renderings are there just to show placement of the screens. Scott didn't have input with our interior decorators. They haven't done their work yet, so we don't have the permanent type of furniture selection or placement or anything else. Frankly, it's a little early for us to talk about that. The building is just topping off now in terms of its wood construction. This project hopefully will be done by the end of the year. At least that's what we're shooting for.
The development project?
Yes.
Commissioner Cavagna, a question? What, are you continuing questions, Commissioner Lee? Sorry.
For the sensors, what type of distance are we looking at right now?
For the sensors to
10
recognize?
feet,
Oh,
15
no,
feet?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, okay.
Our tech team, toy shop would be the best one to tell us. I think it's early.
10 to 15 feet.
Okay.
Actually, we'll have a suggested area for the activity to the, but it'll be in the 10 to 15.
And then, do you know how many motions can be detected? For example, let's say 5 people are standing there. Will it be able to manipulate all 5, or which one of the 5?
Primarily going to be more accurate with one person.
Okay.
So beam width and so forth, I don't know. We'll have to explore those. It's part of the doing of it. So, but we know what we want to achieve, and we won't step back from that. So that was
Very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Kavanian.
Thank you, Chair Deaver. One quick question. It just crossed my mind. Has there been any thought about inputting some kind of musical element?
Oh, sound is
alongside
very much
this?
a part of it. You heard some of the sound with this. We have to be careful about sound. It's a public space. Whatever the art is, it can't be too intrusive. It should be engaging. It should be available. Those that want to have it as a primary focus of their presence, that's fine. Those that don't, can't. We have the ability to use the soundtracks that come with the content, or we can go with different soundtrack. We'll just have to play that by ear as we program it.
I have some questions myself. In one of the concept plans there, the cafe, is that open into the lobby area then? Is there,
No.
it is not, is there actually glass there or no?
Yes, you're right. It does open. In fact, let me show it to you. Okay. Got to go to that. If you look over here, this wall here is a retractable glass wall. The cafe is on the other side of the wall. So during business hours, we would expect that they would want to draw their walls out. So you not only have the benefit of this space, but you have the cafe available. So guests, pedestrians, citizens, whoever is visiting this space, people that live in that space may come to the cafe, grab a coffee, find a nice place to sit, read their paper, have a conversation, play chess, whatever turns them on. And in terms of the furnishings, you know, when we originally planned the space, there were no glass doors. And the result of that is it drove the type of furniture that we could put in there because things happen to find feet. And what we don't want is outdoor park furniture that's uncomfortable and resilient and nailed to the ground and things like that. We'd rather it be more, in the words of our interior decorator, just a wonderful large living room space where you can really get in. Now, there are limits. We get vagrants, we get homeless people, we get kids, we get all kinds of people. So we'll have to be careful in terms of how we select it and where it is and how it works. That's all still on the planning board.
And so in the exterior then, you mentioned glass doors, of course, that people can see in. Is the rest of the exterior, is it blocked and then the glass is above? What I'm trying to understand is the full-on visibility and the
Sure.
how freely people will be able to kind of come and go if they're obviously if they're resident, they're going to be familiar with it, or if they're going to the cafe, but how welcoming and inviting the space is outside of that.
Absolutely. So during daytimes, there are 6 portals, 2 on Central and 4 along California. And this is where the glass doors also are. Those glass doors are open during the day. So somebody walking down California could choose to cut the corner and walk through the space and move on out to Central or stay. Somebody coming down from Central could also do that. We struggled hard with the problems of ambient light and sunshine.
Well, that was my next question is when you're talking about projection, you also have to have control over the light, and so you're going to have to strike a balance between being able to view something that's 20 feet up and also that it's a safety issue as well.
That's the reason it's 20 feet up. By having it up that high, California runs east-west, and therefore the south sun is arriving from this angle, if you look up on the screen here. And by having it up at 20 to 22 feet, near the ceiling, the effects of all the ambient light passing through these glass columns and all the glass walls around is diffused, so it will not interfere. I've been assured that the LEDs that have been selected are extremely high lumen, and we won't have an issue in terms of visibility. The reason to also place the big screen on the wall and the far east side of the building also insulates us from the effect of sun. So we're going to be able to actually achieve what we couldn't achieve with the luminetric sticks, 66 sticks in the ceiling, where you'd simply have points of light moving up and down in those sticks. Here, we've got a full screen, we've got full resolution, HD resolution, up on the screen with bright lumens coming down, and they're not impacted by sunlight. That was very much a criteria for us.
I would assume that it would be, but I'm glad to hear the thought that went in behind it. And you had alluded to this earlier too, as you talk about second stages down there, if you find the funding to be able to do the outward appearance of the art, because what would be worse, the worst thing possible is you put all of this heart and soul and thought into this and nobody comes, right? And so encouraging you all, and I'm sure you will be, but thinking about it as a gallery as you're moving forward and taking advantage of the marketing components of bringing people in. So to the extent that things aren't coming out and drawing people in yet, how is that going to be? How is the public going to know that this is there? And I don't need an answer necessarily. I'm assuming that you're thinking about all of that, but that's just something that has crossed my mind, and making sure that is a free-flowing space.
I'm following my instincts, and my instincts tell me that when this thing launches, there will be large groups of people coming through there on a regular basis, at least for the first 3 or 4 months, and then we'll see how resilient and how interesting the art remains and how much it draws people. I commented earlier, if I had a morning meeting, and we all tend to do these things, whether it's breakfast meeting or I got to meet somebody at lunch, or let's rendezvous someplace. This would be a pretty cool place to rendezvous. This would be a fun place to go have a bagel and talk to somebody. That's what we hope to achieve.
Right. Well, for myself, and the other commissioners have said this, I certainly appreciate the thought and the heart that goes into, because I work in the development community as well, so I know that some art, it's not really necessarily there, and for others that it is. So we appreciate the extra thought and time that has gone into all of this. It's a lovely art installation potential based on the images. I'm going to throw this out there only in that I love the images. I think they're beautiful things that I've seen. I don't know what you as an artist are considering moving forward, but to the extent that things occasionally reflect our diverse communities and people feel welcomed within some of those images and such as well, just something to be thinking about. But they're beautiful. I love the whole imagery of it. Obviously, there's a lot of creativity, clearly, that goes into all angles of that, and whatever you're going to be coming up with for this installation, I'm sure it'll be fabulous.
I have to tell you that the other submissions we got were also very meritorious. I'll throw this out just as a comment. One of them was so high-tech that they wanted to harvest the mood of Glendale from Twitter feeds. Which was a really clever idea. They had this wonderful system. They could cull all of the Twitter feeds that were coming out of Glendale and search for particular word expressions and recognize that these are, and then translate them into a color, which was really clever on an abstract standpoint. But it occurred to me that between 7 and 9, most Glendale people would be pissed about the traffic. And I don't know that I want to see red every morning. So we had to kind of move on with other ideas. There's so many great ideas. I think we got one that's going to work.
So finally, my understanding then, so the building itself is you're hoping to have complete by the end of the year. So the art installation, I presume, will be going into kind of mid-2015, or are you timing them together?
It'll open when we open.
Okay, great.
We have not started our commercial leasing yet for the space. It's a little early for that, but within the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be talking about that. We think it's very important that we pick the right commercial businesses to go in there.
Absolutely.
It either creates or kills the building, and the art will be designed to come online when the building comes online.
Great. And my other question is, what is the general budget for?
We're a 1% budget, and I think we're at...
So the requirement, because this project falls in the old requirement, which is 1% on-site or 1% in lieu payment, so I think the project is about $15.5 million, and this initial budget puts this art component at $208 100,000. So it's definitely well over the 1% requirement, and this is something that we verify at a staff level and bring in a third-party art appraiser to verify these numbers.
Thank you. Questions, motion? Commissioner Kavanian.
Thank you, Chair Deaver. I would like to go ahead and move approval for the new proposed project.
One clarification, we're recommending approval in this particular motion.
Right. Recommending approval in that case.
I have one more comment.
Commissioner Lee.
In looking at the dimensions, you had mentioned that the two on the ceiling, 6.5
by 13.
by 13. Now, did you ever might be coming across maybe 3? Because if you're talking 55 feet depth, right?
We're not going to cover the entire ceiling.
Okay.
We don't want to. And as we get to the central corner on Central, the ambient light will be much higher. So
Okay.
we're pocketing it back further. And we also want to recognize that, frankly, there might be people who don't want to be bothered by the art and would like to have a space within that space that doesn't intrude on it. So we gave them some of that, too. Also, there's a relational component and a cost and budget component. It'd be great if we had more money. If the city wants to contribute some from its art budget, we'd be happy to receive it and see how further we can evolve the idea. But this is as cutting edge as I think you'll find anywhere.
Okay.
So we have a motion to recommend approval of the new public art plan. Do we have a second? Roll call.
Commissioners Hovhannissian,
Yes.
Kavanian,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Sharikian,
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver.
Yes. Next item.
Thank you.
I'm recommending that if we can continue to move down our business agenda, go with the motion approving the rules and procedures, then the year-end report, and then we can try and jump back to the events update. Because I think some of the other items are very important, and the events, we can give you some information later.
I am fine with that. We can move on to business agenda item 2.
Item 5A2, action item, motion approving Arts and Culture Commission rules and procedures.
Over the last several months, the Commission has been working to formalize a series of rules and procedures of the Commission, and last month staff brought forward a draft copy of the rules and procedures, and then we took comments. There were some comments and some clarification points, as well as some additions that the Commission requested that we have put into this final draft that's before you for final approval. Just to quickly go over what some of these clarification points were. First being clarify the relationship between the Commission and other city boards and commissions, and include language about serving as an official liaison to private organizations. This came from the Commission serving on the Glendale Arts Board or Museum of Neon Art Board. Second is to further define the relationship between Library Arts and Culture Department and the Commission. Clarify that meetings in locations other than the council chamber or MSB room 105 requires city manager's approval. Addition of language discussing the appointment of commissioners to ad hoc subcommittees. There was a comment as to if there was something that was already included in the ordinance establishing the commission. After further review, we had to add a section discussing the appointment of commissioners to these subcommittees. Limitations to the term of office for the chairperson and vice chair. There was some discussion, and after this lengthy discussion, the commission voted to nominate both the chair and the vice chair each January, and that neither can serve a consecutive term in the same position. And then the final is that amendment of these rules require a majority vote by the commission. I think that covers all of the changes and additions the commission wanted. Your copy indicated these clarification and additions in green. bold, so it was easy for you to find. If you have any questions, staff is happy to answer them.
Commissioner Hovhannissian.
As mentioned on page 2D, I want some clarification. It won't kill me either way, just I wanted to know that. Well, when I do understand that when we assign things to the staff and staff takes care of it. But if the staff or the head of the department wants to assign a specific task or assignment to the chairperson, does that happen here on the dais, that we know that this is happening? Or is it going to be behind the closed doors, that decision? Because at times there are certain things that I do think that the council members who are appointing us, they might be interested to know what direction we are taking. That's number one. And then on page 7, one of the green areas that talks about appointing commissioners for the ad hoc meetings. The tradition, I suppose, is that we volunteer, and then if there are more than one commissioner interested for any of those, then the chairperson mediates and finds the best solution to make sure that everybody is happy about it. But the way it is addressed here on page 7, number D, it seems that kind of it's more of an instruction who should go where. And I thought the language is a little bit too strong.
I think to answer your second point, after chatting with Mr. Grant, it's the City Council and other commissions and boards uses the same language, but that doesn't mean that commissioners can't express interest in serving on a specific ad hoc committee. Eventually, it is the chairperson that appoints, but for example, in our process for assigning commissioners to review those public art programs, each commissioner volunteered and expressed interest, and it was done by group vote. This just changes that it doesn't have to go through the commission vote and makes it consistent with the City Council and other commissions and boards.
To me, the language still is very strong. At a given time, we might have all wonderful people like we have right now. But at different times, we don't know who's going to be on this dais. People come from different walks of life. So, and sometimes if the language is too strong, maybe it will be taken as that. So in a civilized way of people who are being appointed by 5 different councilmen, and we are all coming from different walks of life. So to me, kind of one person having that much jurisdiction to assign and appoint and instruct, it is a little bit too much. This is a volunteer situation we take upon us to serve the community. It's not a job or hired situation that we have to go through that chain of command. I kind of somehow see that if possible, if we could soften the structure, it might work better with people who, at this point, we are all fine, but it worked very well so far. But as I said, we never have control over who's going to be on the dais and how strong the egos might be. So I would feel more comfortable if that is kind of softened, if possible.
Would it, in the attempt to try and finalize this document and get final approval at this meeting, would it, I guess if at 7A2 add some sort of language that says appoint not more than 2 commissioners to the ad hoc subcommittee based on commissioner preference, volunteer. I'm looking at our city attorney.
Chairperson Deaver and commissioners, it could be, one possibility could be that number 2 reads appoint not more than 2 commissioners who volunteer to serve on the ad hoc subcommittee.
It sounds very good.
If the other commissioners feel comfortable with that language, then we can make these changes. As mentioned, like to get all of your comments and approve the document today, and all of your changes and comments will be reflected in this document.
And one more?
Yes.
On the same page for B2, it says that the chairperson would go to for interviews to different media and TV and etc. Again, by experience, I have seen that it works best to make sure that either another commissioner is invited or one of the staff goes with the person, because in some situations it feels much better if there is a kind of a small group presentation rather than one person, depending.
And
News press is always
just
different.
sorry for clarification. So 5B2, it does. If I'm looking at the right, it does state in addition to staff as opposed to independently. I think. Am I looking at what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So that would assume at least the staff, and then if there was needed a formal representative from the commission, that it would be the chair, unless otherwise probably assigned. I assume.
Yeah, the way that this is worded, so it would be staff would be the spokesperson or the point of contact, and if needed, then we could bring the chairperson to also represent the commission. But it's.
I have a question now. In case one of us is invited, I'm not talking about news press, because news press is too clear-cut. I do believe that basically, unless it's a special invitation that the chairperson goes, that's for sure. And if not, they meet you at a meeting or party or whatever. If they ask you a question, what should be the position of the commissioner? Should we say that we do not respond to this question, or we are not going to interview with you, you need to contact our chair? Is that one thing? And also when it's media, let's say especially with Armenian TV, they invite, or different organizations, they invite us to come and talk about different things, of course, and meanwhile there might be questions about the direction of the commission. What is the role of the commissioner in this situation?
If I may, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I read this not as an exclusive where the chairperson is the only person who may represent the commission at media, but rather that the chairperson, it's a duty of the chairperson. So if somebody's taking on that role, they have the expectation that they would be comfortable speaking as a point person before media or other events, but that if a commissioner were approached by somebody and asked a question, that certainly they are at free will to speak as they please. I think it's just more of a formality. Ms. Cleary.
One suggestion on that note might be to say, acting on behalf of the commission, the chairperson may represent as opposed to will.
Yeah, make a comment.
Commissioner Shurikian, yes.
Aren't we all part of the commission? We can represent the commission at all time. I mean, that's our job. We are the ambassadors of the art and culture, basically. So if somebody asks us questions publicly, then we will only talk about not our views, but the commission decisions. I mean, that's how I understand.
I guess maybe I'm misinterpreting what Commissioner Derhav at SEN is saying, but I'm thinking you're saying this is reading as if it's the sole response, or it's only the chairperson who can be the representative. So if this is reading act on behalf of the commission, the chairperson may.
Yeah.
That would, I think, address what you're talking about.
No.
Well, it does. It just states that it's the duty of the chairperson to be a point of contact in addition to staff. It's not saying that they will or they may. I might suggest I think we have rules in here for commissioners that we are acting as ambassadors in general within the community and are at liberty to speak on our personal views as so identified or on behalf of the commission if it's a factual type of response.
Well, that's how you read it because your ego is in the right place. But if we have a chairperson, or we later on then all appointed or elect a chairperson, this might not always be translated that way. That is in place. If by changing may would kind of be a clearer language than will. Now, my other question to this is that if we are invited as commissioners, this has nothing to do with the chair part, if as commissioners we are invited to go and talk on a TV, would it be the procedure or any other organization, if we know in advance, we need to let the commission know and there might be other commissioners who are interested to come with us? Or we just take that request and on our own we make a decision on that?
I mean, I think it would be in good practice that if a commissioner is invited to speak, that they let staff know so that at least we're aware that a commissioner is going to be speaking, and then we can try and provide consistent information and language to each commissioner so that, I think one of the important things is that all of the commissioners have the same understanding of some of the projects. So I think if it is an opportunity for additional commissioners to attend, then staff will send a notice. So, if let's say ABC News would like to do feature and contacts one of the commissioners, it would be we strongly advise that you contact staff, and if there's an opportunity to include more than one commissioner, we can do that. We can't include more than 3 because then it's a Brown Act issue, but I think it's always good to let our staff know, because then we always get calls after the fact, so it would be good for us to know if something is happening.
So could I request that that would be included somewhere?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll find the appropriate place to.
Can we reiterate what will be added to this? Because when we do the motion, I want to be sure that I'm clear. I'm not clear at the moment.
Well, I think what staff suggested is just to say if a commission is invited to speak on behalf of the commission or its activities, that they let staff know so that we can provide information as necessary, but so that we're aware of that. And I think
so, likely under a relationship between commissioners and staff, but staff will determine where the best wording and placement for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there other questions, comments? No? Commissioner Kevanian?
Despite this not having, again, effect on me, and with all due respect to my colleagues and their opinions and their ideas, I understand what the goal of this is, but it's not like, and sorry that I'm saying this, but it's not like we're going to get a Hitler to come and sit on this commission. I constantly feel that we're making sure that every single box is checked, and I don't. Then what is the point of trusting each other on a commission, period, or trusting any other human being? So, as far as I'm concerned, I think the language that was originally presented is fine. I think all the other commissions have done a great job with functioning under those. So I don't think we need any special wording or anything. And I also want to add this as well, is that there have been commissioners who, despite these rules, of course, were not written then, but there have been commissioners in the past who have done things maybe that was not okay with everybody else. And guess what? During the meeting, that came out. And we let them know, and guess what? They didn't do it again. Or even if they did do it again, there's certain processes that are already in place to either A, remove that commissioner if they're causing such a disturbance, or B, you constantly have an opportunity to air that stuff out right here on this dais. That's what it's here for. Otherwise, everything would happen in the background and Brown Act issues. So I don't understand what is the end result? What is the end goal of this? Is it to make sure that we don't have anybody taking over anything? And I know that everybody's heart is in the good place. And again, I said, I respect everybody's view on this. And yes, there have been, again, like I said, commissioners that have kind of overstepped their boundaries. But that happens. We're human. We make little mistakes here and there. And what did we do? On the dais, we put it all out there on the table, and we resolved those issues. This commission has gone through a lot of things. In the 9 years that I've been on this commission, we've been up and all the way down. So I've probably seen every possible break in the rules and regulations that we've had. We've seen lots of these little missteps taken by people, and there are ways to handle them. I don't think we have to make sure that every little minute word has, we make sure that we define it in a certain way and a certain, in the document itself.
Before we move, I want to add to that, because I agree in principle on what you're saying, and that if we are electing as a commission a chairperson, the expectation is that we are electing them for a reason. Especially with the process that we have in place now, we're looking at it's not by rotation, so it is going to be selecting somebody who they can represent the commission on the outside. And I think in terms of having some protocols with regard to notifying staff if you're contacted by the media, for instance, it's just good practice, because nobody wants something to go out that was sort of just off for intentionally or unintentionally, because you want to be able to kind of control your message to some extent. But on the other hand, we also don't want to limit the freedom of the speech of the commissioners when they're in the community. Commissioner Deverhoeven-Essian.
Chairperson Deaver, the idea is that I always feel better if something is written and people who come are new and they don't know what are their rights and their limitations. So this way they would know what is the direction instead of doing the laundry and abusing them or getting upset with them or telling them off about what they did. I think it is more cordial. I think it is more politically correct. If it is clear and it's written and the person reads and then just one pointing to the direction that is also mentioned, I think we'll stop a behavior rather than having the behavior happen and then kind of discuss it on the dais. But, well, there are different genres of treating people and understanding how we need to be. This is how I see it. And I've been on this commission for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of good and some not so very good situations. So I feel it's safer, and I think it doesn't hurt just to add a word here and there because, as I said, not everybody, there are many people who are new and they don't know what is the direction. So they would be clear by reading the points.
Are there other comments or requests for changes to the document? I have one under 5D, changing signing to changing certifying to signing. It's with regard to the role of the chair for signing off on approved minutes. It's in keeping with what the city council process is. It's item 5D. I don't know the page number. Sorry.
7.
Page 7.
7.
Thank you. So it currently reads, certifying the approved copy of the commission's meeting minutes is a duty of the chairperson. To be consistent with council, it would be we would be signing the approved copy as opposed to certifying it. It's a pretty minor change. It's feeling like a long afternoon to me. Can you do a rundown on what you've heard would be on the table as changes if a motion went forward with changes?
Sure. So the commission may vote to approve the documents with the following changes. Is to add language concerning if commissioners are requested by media that the commissioner talk to staff so that staff can provide information and be aware of this. Of course, we'll fine-tune that language. And under 5,
I'm sorry, and that would be under number 2, relationship between commissioners and staff. Is that correct?
yes. Under 5B, can insert language, acting on behalf of the commission, the chairperson may. 5D, replacing certifying with signing. 5E, appointing 2 commissioners who volunteer to serve to an ad hoc committee, an ad hoc subcommittee to the commission. 7.2A2, appoint not more than 2 commissioners who volunteer to serve to the ad hoc subcommittee. And those are the requested changes.
And I want to say that I for one, also I'm uncomfortable with the change to that the chairperson may, to me, it's inherent that they may, anybody may. So I would rather, if we consider that to be a responsibility of the chair, that they would be appointed or talk to staff and be asked to preside, that we either say that yes, that would be something that we would ask the chairperson to do, or we would not, as opposed to saying that they might. That's just my stance on it. I don't know how others feel, but I'm not comfortable with that change.
Are there any other comments to make these changes, not make these changes? I'd like to get some consensus so that we can move forward and approve.
I think if may is more polite and cordial, that would be great, but it seems Chairperson Deaver does not like that, prefers the will instead of may.
I think I understood not to even include that language. Right now it reads, acting on behalf of the commission as the representative and the spokesperson or point of contact. The it was suggested to add language, acting on behalf of the commission, the chairperson may. So it's, from what I understood, Chairperson Deaver does not want that addition. And I think that's the same that I heard from Chair Kevanen, because he doesn't want the proposed changes. Is that correct? Okay. And then Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Sharikian, I need some opinion one way or the other. I'm going to put you on the spot, but we need to have some consensus whether or not to include these changes or revisions or not.
I have no comments.
I just want to say, I just don't think it's very clarifying. If the point of this whole exercise is to clarify what our roles and responsibilities are, that if we weaken it, whether we consider it to be polite or not, it's a formal document for procedures. So either we do or we don't something, as opposed to we would prefer, we might, we may. I would like to stay away from that type of language.
All I want to add, if I may,
Commissioner Shurikin.
there is a last point that we did. If we don't like a rule in this procedure, we can change it anytime. So I'm not really worried about it. I mean, I don't want to vote anything, but we have the power to change anything at any time. So
It can absolutely come back before the commission and be reconsidered for changes down in the future if people wish to do that. Commissioner Lee?
The only reason I would go with the may is because sometimes the chairperson can't make the event. If basically it is their duty, then that means they're technically required to be at the events no matter what. And if you put may, we'll soften that and be able to have other representatives. That's the only.
Well, again, I would say that may is then not the appropriate word. We're not talking about that they might or they might not, but it would be in the event of their availability, our expectation is that whomever is chairperson at a given time would be the key person along with staff to attend some of these functions. So again, I appreciate what you're saying. I just don't think that I don't like the waffling of that.
I mean, right now it reads that it is a duty and a responsibility, but if the chairperson cannot, there our rules and procedures, nominates a vice chair, plus there's a staff person, and.
But in that same essence, let's say an event comes up all of a sudden between meetings, and then.
Can we add that? Sorry to cut you off, but so in that essence, so if it would fall to the vice chair as the next line. If they were not available and it was something that staff felt somebody from the commission had to be at, then does it fall in these rules? I'm just not clear. It's not coming to me at the moment that there would be an appointment of a successor to be the official point person at a very specific media event.
I mean, I'm not sure if it's a formal appointment or if it's just if the chair and the vice chair cannot attend, if it's an email that staff sends to the 3 other commissioners and asks somebody to please volunteer. And so the commission would still have representation at the staff level. I mean, I know it's getting into like semantics, and I think,
Is there a better term?
Commissioner Kevanen.
I just want to add one last thing. We've all been to events where, for example, Glendale News Press will come and talk to each and every one of us, and they'll decide which one of our comments to use. So should we get offended that the chairs didn't, or that the chairs would have, or might have, or may, or I don't know what? But that happens all the time. Or when they even watch one of our meetings, they will select certain comments from certain people. Should I get offended because, let's say I was the chair, which of course will never happen again. If I was the chair, should I get offended that, my comments were not used, or I should have been the point person? Then it causes other issues on top of that. So I just want to point that out.
There are 3 items that I need to get consensus on, so I will put you on the spot again, and just so we can move forward, because we can't approve a document if not everyone's clear, and then this just gets dragged out into future meetings, and then you'll forever have a draft document that is not finalized. So I think the goal was to get this finalized at the July meeting, and I will do that today. So the first is the addition of language about commissioners talking to media and notifying staff. Is this a change that the commission would like included in 2, relationship between commissioners and staff? I'll start with Commissioner Lee. Just say yes or no to the addition or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
I'm against all additions. I think I've made myself clear.
Commissioner Sharikian. Okay. See, this is easy. So 5B, including language about the chairperson acting on behalf of the commission, the chairperson may. Again, if you want that language, please say yes. If no, say no.
5B.
5B. Currently it reads, acting on behalf of the commission as the representative in addition to staff, blah, blah, blah. Number 2, the spokesperson or point of contact in addition to staff. There was a request to add to be acting on behalf of the commission, the chairperson may. But these are the duties and responsibilities of the chair. So, inherent. So, Commissioner Lee, yes for the addition of that language or no?
I'll say yes.
I'll abstain.
No.
No.
Yes.
I'm going to break your process here for a moment. Understanding that Commissioner Cavani would like to just keep things as they are, but in order to trying to find a compromise here, what if then 5B2, the spokesperson or point of contact in addition to staff at media events or press conferences, or may appoint a person to be a commissioner to be the spokesperson? Are people comfortable with something like that? Just so that you have, it's a role that they are playing. It's a responsibility that when we elect a chairperson, we have an expectation that they are somebody that will be going before very specific media events or press conferences.
Has that ever happened before? That we've
What,
had the
so
chair
many
go
press
to a press
conferences.
conference?
I'm just going to. We haven't that I'm aware of through here, but having been in other organizations, other boards where that comes up, I think it's to have this having an expectation that the person that you vote in as chair, that would be the person that would have the facts. They could work with staff. They could answer the specific questions. This is not about news press is at an event and they start questioning people. Oh, you can't talk to me. You have to talk to the chair. This is about a press conference that's been called. There's a media event. There's something that's going on, and you want to have an official representative. And I would say that if you're not comfortable with that person, then you shouldn't have elected them to begin with as your chairperson or your vice chairperson. But if you give them the authority then to designate somebody else that might be interested in doing that in the rare event that this might occur, it just seems like a good protocol to have in place for when that does arise.
Because the only thing I would see from that is let's say, for example, I'm not the chair, but I'm the liaison for the Glendale Arts Board. Glendale Arts has an event. Since I'm the commissioner that's familiar with all those and I'm able to go, that would be the only time where, I would think it would trump, and that's where the might come in. That's the only thing I would see. One of the commissioners might be more fit into, for example, the library opening, whoever was sitting on the brand associates should be this, could be the spokesperson because, they're most familiar with, the event versus just bringing a chair, just because they're chair, just bringing them in.
Again, I don't know that 5B2 excludes other commissioners from being a point person for an event in that case. I mean, it's a great example. But I don't think that this excludes it. It just says that the chair would be the person for media events regarding the commission's activities. But I think under the rules or responsibilities for commissioners, there's like 5 different things where commissioners are expected to do involved with the public in general. So that might already be covered in there, or maybe it could be added into there. Mr. Grant, did you have okay.
I think the goal would be that if the chair or vice chair or any other commissioner is then called upon to speak at an event or at a press conference, they would coordinate with staff to be able to prepare a statement that is consistent with the city's goals, the commission's goals, as well as the department's goals. So that is the hope that that the chair would consult with staff to prepare an appropriate statement. So I don't think that is required, but I think that is what would be expected. It's what is done for other commissions and for the council. So I think if that provides any of you assurance that that's what the chair or the vice chair they would coordinate with staff to be able to develop a statement, I think give some people a level of assurance.
I do believe the explanation here was very clear on that, and I think that even Commissioner or Chairperson Dever understands that that's how it's supposed to be understood, but I don't think that's how it's read. So if everybody is happy with the way it is there, that's fine. If it's not, then let's change it.
Ms. Vartanian, if you want to continue your process,
Sure.
If I may, Chair Dever and Commission, because 2 voted yes, 2 voted no, and there was 1 abstention, generally the abstention is treated as a no vote, and also it would, if it were a formal motion, it would not pass, just to advise the Commission.
Technically, it's not a formal vote, but it's a consensus. You know what I mean? It's
just the legal way it's treated.
So 5D, replacing certifying with signing, I think that was just a clarification to be consistent with City Council. I don't think we need to do a vote on that. And then 5E and 7A2, it's similar language, and that is to clarify that the chairperson can appoint 2 commissioners who volunteer to serve to the ad hoc subcommittee. If you'd like to have that language included, say yes. If you don't, please say no. Commissioner Lee.
I misread it before, because didn't we always select whoever the commission selects who goes on the ad hoc committee? This one is saying that the chairperson's duty is to appoint.
We have traditionally, it's been brought forth and people volunteer, and we have gone through on a roll call on it. The proposed change, which I think is consistent with other city, with the city council and others, is that the commissioners may still volunteer, but rather than going through a roll call process, the chairperson has the ability to just simply appoint them.
This helps, for example, if we need a last-minute committee to vote to approve a project. This is something that we can quickly do. Would it require still a meeting, or could it just be through an informal appointment? Informal appointment? Okay, so that we could quickly make a decision.
So it's a safeguard.
So we could still ask for interest from commissioners. We have committee XYZ who's interested. The first 2 commissioners who volunteer, then the chair would appoint, and then we can move forward. And it's consistent with what the city council and other city boards do. So this just clarifies that commissioner may volunteer, and the chair would appoint.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, that one I'm going to say yes. And surprise everyone.
So
just said that
unpredictable.
you don't want to add anything.
I love being unpredictable.
Yes.
You better be consistent.
You just said that you don't want to add anything.
So that leaves us with...
There is consensus to add the language about commissioners talking to staff before they talk to media, I think, on TV. And then there's consensus to adding who volunteered to serve for the ad hoc subcommittee appointment. And because there was 2 yeses, 2 noes, and an abstention for adding the language the chairperson made, that does not get included in the motion. So right now the commission can make a motion with the changes proposed. We will finalize the document, and then it'll be your formal rules and procedures starting, August. I think, within.
So the changes proposed, except for the one where
Correct.
there was... Right. Thank you.
So what was the last one you said about the ad hoc? I didn't get it. I thought we were clear on that.
Yes, we are clear. The ad hoc is that the
Volunteer,
chairperson.
and then we decide here.
Yes. No. That the chairperson appoints. So the commissioners volunteer to serve, and then the chairperson would appoint. It doesn't require a formal vote.
Which is essentially what happens in practice. It makes it available, so if there's a last-minute thing, we don't have to try and call a special meeting in order to move a project forward. We can act pretty swiftly. It's consistent with City Council and all the other commissions within the City of Glendale.
I'll make a motion to approve with those changes.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Commissioners Hovhanessian?
Yes.
Kevanian?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Sharikian?
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 5B, information item. At 1, year-end report.
PowerPoint. Happy to bring you just your year-end report for all of the commission's activities. Although we have a 2-year work plan, staff thought it would be beneficial to bring a report to just give you a report as what you've accomplished in the first fiscal year from July 2013 to June 2014. It has been a busy year for you. I think I used to call it Commission Boot Camp because we were constantly bringing items before you to vote, and it was about establishing the 5-year strategic plan. Last year, you developed a 2-year work plan and began implementation of it. One of the first programs, and it's been very successful, is Beyond the Box program. In that program, 26 murals were painted on utility boxes in downtown Glendale. In partnership with Great American Cleanup, this brought together artists, amateur artists, student artists, as well as professional artists with community members to paint the utility boxes. Another project that has been implemented that's happening right now that's also been very successful are the performing arts pop-ups, as I like to call them. We have these performances at Brand Library and Arts Center as part of the Plaza series, as well as several that are happening throughout the year. The Commission approved a total of 13 free public performances and happening at a variety of locations, and each of these have attracted about 100 people. I think last Friday attracted over 150 people, so it was very popular up at Brand Library and Arts Center. To date, the Commission has approved professional services agreements to move forward with John David O'Brien as the consultant to oversee the Art and Vacant Storefronts program, After Productions for Art and Public Spaces, and Glendale Arts to be the event management firm to organize and manage the Signature Art event. We've also prepared a dedicated webpage for public art and the Commission as part of the city's website. And we've partnered with Glendale Unified School District for installations at Adams Square Gas Station. And finally, the Commission participated in the grand reopening of Brand Library and Arts Center. So just to showcase some of the projects. So these are just a few of the utility boxes that were painted through the Beyond the Box program. I think these 3 are probably the most popular. I think we've gotten a lot of comments every time we've posted these. The first one is actually done by hand by a professional street artist, Robert Montenavarro. The second one is also a local artist. He works at Disney as an animator. And the last is done by a teacher who teaches up at Clark Magnet, and she painted this with 2 of her students. And then these are some images of the performances up at Brand Library and Arts Center. Again, we've been encouraging community members to pack a picnic and come. It's really exciting to see people of all ages enjoying these performances, families, grandparents with their grandkids, couples on a date. So it's really attracting a lot of people, and the performances that the subcommittee selected are really diverse, and it's really exciting for people to see flamenco one night, and then another week is African drum and dance, and then there's Balinese music, as well as a 70s cover band. So it's really an exciting mix of performances. Just to get into the numbers, as part of the work plan, the Commission adopted 2-year budgets for the general fund for the 2 years. We appropriated $19,600, and for the Urban Art Fund, $371,000. The total funding we have right now is about $2.4 million. Which is a nice amount, and I think when the Commission adopted the 5-year strategic plan, it was, working with a little bit less money than that, but the goal was to make that funding last for about 10-year cycle, and we're on target in terms of our budget. Of course, there are a lot of development projects in the pipeline. Should those move forward, we anticipate possibly another $1 million, but we don't know until those projects actually pull their permits and we know they're moving forward. But this is still a lot more money than I think we previously had invested in the arts. So some of our general fund projects and programs, as mentioned, there's the Arts and Culture Commission website. Visitors can visit GlendaleArtsandCulture.com. It redirects you to the Commission's page as part of the Library Arts and Culture website, and it's basically dedicated pages for public art, commission projects, events, and artist opportunities. So right now we have highlighted pages for our work plan, our strategic plan, so people can get information about our urban art program, just to really understand the commission activities. But they can also get information on our projects such as Beyond the Box. We have images, we have a map. So if people want to do a walking tour, want to know the artists and all of those details, they can get that. And as well as with the Plaza series. And as the Art and Vacant Storefronts program and the Art and Public Spaces programs, they develop a little bit more, we'll have dedicated pages for those 2 programs. And then we also have a page that's dedicated to artist opportunities. That's where we advertise both the Commission's artist opportunities. If there are artist opportunities through LA County Arts Commission or Metro that are open to Glendale artists, we really want to be able to provide that as a resource for artists. And if we don't have any opportunities, for example, right now there's nothing advertised, we encourage artists to join our email list so they're notified as soon as there is an opportunity. One of the other projects that the Commission approved actually prior to our work plan, this was one of the first projects we worked on when I first started, and the policy's been approved. We did a few installations with Glendale Unified School District. We're looking to continue that partnership with them at the Adams Square gas station. It brings the community together. It allows for the students in our school system to display their art. The next steps for the other parks venues, we have to consider the priorities based on staffing limitations. The other project locations do require staff from both the Commission as well as Parks Department. And in light of our work plan, we'll need to just assess those priorities based on the staffing. So the Urban Art Fund projects and programs, I touched on these, but just to give you some more information, we anticipate the first installation for Art and Vacant Storefronts program in early fall. There are some locations available right now that we might potentially look to partner with a local arts group just to do one installation while we issue a call for artists. That is one of the goals, is to issue a call for artists. But while we're doing that and to get people excited about the program, we're considering doing an installation in one of the city-owned spaces in the Arts and Entertainment District for 1 or 2 months, and just generate some excitement while we do the call for artists, so that we're not just waiting around for those proposals to come in. With the performing arts, it is in process. We've implemented 5 of those performances. We have 8 more remaining. The good news is we do have funding available to do phase 2. The murals on utility boxes, again, phase 1 is done. We still have money to be able to do a second phase within this work plan. The murals on city property is another project. We are awaiting identification of spaces. The commission was interested in a couple of spaces, freeway underpasses, and trying to identify ownership is a lot trickier than we anticipated. There's like Caltrans Metro, the city, county, city of LA, a lot of people involved. So we're really trying to identify that and possibly look at some other locations that we could do this. And then there's potential implementation in spring 2015. It's still within our work plan, still enough time to develop, scope, identify some of those spaces. The signature art event, the professional services agreement is still awaiting council approval. Pending approval, we anticipate we can still, shoot for an event in fall 2015. Although this would fall in the following work plan. I think a lot of those costs will be required in the current work plan. That's why it's still included, and it would give the commission an idea of what type of investment it needs to make to keep that event. If it's a very successful event, I think it was one of the goals was to be able to fund an event like this for about 3 to 5 years until it became self-sufficient, and then reinvest that money into other events and programs. The temporary installations in public spaces, or art in public spaces, it's a little bit easier to say, that we're also looking at doing that installation in fall. The 2 consultants are communicating together so that we can try and coordinate, openings or just any special events or projects that are happening together. So when we get people into the downtown area, they have a lot of different things to look at. And I think it's a really great thing to have consultants work together and try and work towards the goals of the commission together. The capital improvements to city facilities for art, this is something that did come up in our work plan, and the council did ask staff from a couple of different departments to look into this, and this is pending further review. There are a couple of projects that are coming that might address some of the goals and intents of this, but again, we're waiting for further information from other departments to be able to move forward. So next steps, we have a lot to do. I think we've just gotten started with implementation. So beyond the box, there is approximately $11,000 left to implement a second phase. I think this is something, since it was very easy to implement, and I say that tongue-in-cheek a little bit because Yvonne handled about 90% of that work, so it was very, very easy from us looking into this project. But I think we can develop a call for artists and identify a new location to implement a second phase in the fall. I think is really exciting. A lot of people want to see another phase of this project, so that's an option that the commission can consider. And if it would like to continue with the Great American Cleanup, which usually occurs in May, I think that's something that you can still do. It would just require an extra report and a request to be able to use additional urban art fund. But this is an option for you to be able to do something quickly in the fall. Some locations you had identified were in Adams Square, Montrose, Kenneth Village, San Fernando Road. I mean, we have a lot of ground to cover in the city, so I think we could quickly find a location. We also have funding available for performing arts. There's about $8,000 left, and I think this is something that the commission can, develop a call for artists for additional performances in spring and summer. The fiscal year, the work plan will end of June of 2015, so you can look to implement, probably, 2 months worth of programming in May and June if you want to, again, limit it to the summer. And for example, at Brand Library and Arts Center, you can dedicate some of that and issue that call for artists in early spring to be able to implement in fall. To implement in the summer. The art in public spaces, art in vacant storefronts, as mentioned, we anticipate implementing them in fall of this year, and they'll continue through summer 2015. So we hope that they will, just finish towards June 2015, and then at that point, well before that, the commission will have its work plan developed, and if you choose to continue these programs, I think they will be successful, and I hope that the commission will choose to continue these projects. You would just add additional funding to be able to encourage more programming. And as mentioned, the signature art event is anticipated for fall 2015. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions, comments? Commissioner Lee.
Question. I'm the numbers guy. Looking at the spreadsheet for appropriated encumbered, there's missing numbers to come up with the 151,000.
Yes, I noticed that, so I apologize for that oversight. Okay. So essentially that encumbered amount includes the approved professional services agreements for John O'Brien, for After Productions, and for Glendale Art, no, not for Glendale Arts, as well as for the entire amounts for the murals on utility boxes and the performing arts programs. Because of the way that the budget carries over, even though it was approved, it needed to, the way that finance includes it is encumbered, I believe. I'm not the numbers person, but Cindy's shaking her head yes, so.
So run that by me again. Signature art event, so the 60,000
I'm
carries
sorry,
over.
not the signature art event, because City Council has not approved it, okay. And I don't think unless they approve it, I don't believe it gets transferred over, but we can get further clarification on that if you'd like. So it was the art and vacant storefronts.
Okay.
And temporary installations in public spaces. And then the cultural and performing arts and the murals on utility boxes. And I believe it also includes the appropriation for the for Monumental Fire Station 21, okay. As well as I think there was a couple of charges to be able to set up accepting the people to pay when they pay for their permits is included in that amount.
21. Okay. It looks like it'll add up now. I didn't calculate it directly because you're looking at 60,000 plus another 60, so 120. The original amount of 10,000, 18,000, 3,000, that comes out to about 30. So 120 plus 30 is about 151, so it's close. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Shirikian.
Thank you. Is the signature art event the one that we were talking about, like an art festival? Is that
yes,
one?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Commissioner Travanasian?
Just I want to commend you for our department and all the commissioners for taking care of so many wonderful activities and to have done so much. It's a long, tall list of great job done and handled. Thank you very much.
And thank you. We took some items out of order, so I want to go back to item 3.
Item 3, introductions and presentations. For the record, Mr. Wyke is not present. The Library Arts and Culture events will be presented by Ms. Cleary.
In the interest of time, since it is 4 o'clock, I'm just going to say there's a lot going on in the library. And if you visit GlendalePublicLibrary.org, you will get all the information you need. So I want to welcome everybody to every event, and there's a lot of things going on. So GlendalePublicLibrary.org.
Thank you. Next item, number 4.
Item 4, oral communications.
And we have no cards. It's next item.
Item 6, commission staff comments.
Commissioner Shirikian?
I would like to make a few comments regarding the Armenian fairy tale event that I went last month. on June 22nd. I was invited from the commission, and I did go. I enjoyed every minute of the performance. They did the performance about an hour and a half. It was a musical. It was a storytelling. It was characters, dancing. It was a full house at Alex Theater, and I was shocked of the entertainment and the educational point behind it. We have a small company in Glendale that did a excellent job. It was an Armenian, but when I talked to them and suggested them, why don't you do this something in bilingual? In fact, they have a project coming up in December. It's going to be something Christmas theme, and they're probably going to do it bilingual, and I would appreciate if all of us can probably join them and at least encourage them. Second, I would like to say thank you to staff again with the performances at Brand Library. I enjoy, my wife and I, we're there probably 3 different times. It's beautiful setting, beautiful atmosphere. And the last time I was there, probably 150 people. They were standing way behind the bushes and underneath the walls. A couple of them were standing even on the light poles, if I'm not mistaken. But it's an excellent outing. The picnic idea, I tried personally. It will work, but the performances, I think, within 1 hour, you're in there, enjoy, and go out. I mean, the timing is very nice. And finally, and I would just want to say thank you to our staff again. We had so much accomplished, and I'm part of it maybe in the last 10 months or 11 months, and I'm really glad that I'm part of this. And you guys made a stamp, and we really thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Lee?
I want to adjourn for the Malaysian airline that was just down by, well, I'm not going to comment on who, but my heartfelt condolences to all the family members that lost family in Malaysian Airlines.
So, as you all know, this will be my last meeting. I've decided, not my decision, but actually I have to thank, first of all, Paula Devine, who actually so graciously called me and said, do you want to be on the commission? Do you not want to be on the commission? We kind of had a discussion about the whole situation, and I said, no, it's time for somebody else to come and take over, simply because been here for 9 years. I've overstayed my welcome. Eight is enough, really. I do believe in term limits. But I really want to thank all of you, colleagues. I view each and one of you in such a special light, and all of you have played in some part of, in some way, shape, or form, some kind of special role. As a friend, as somebody who's an advisor, is all that stuff. I mean, Commissioner Derhovenessen has always been there, like a mother hen, always having me under her wing, and Commissioner Gregorian was always there, like an older brother that we used to have lots of jokes and stuff together, and of course with all of you, it's been so much fun. Been through the dark, depressing days of the Arts and Culture Commission, where I think we had not only a target, but at least even if you have a target, some people say nice things about you, but there was a point in time where that wasn't even said. So we've been through a lot of difficulties, and it's so nice to see that we're in such greener pastures at this point. And I'm so glad that, well, I mean, at least I hope that at some point I've assisted in some way to bring it to this level. And I'm so glad that I'm leaving the commission at this stage. Of course, with my colleagues and their votes on the procedures thing, apparently Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin are going to be on this commission soon, and maybe even Mao Zedong. But I'm kidding, of course. and that's always been the wonderful thing on this commission is that, whatever happens here on the dais, we leave here, and then when we go out, outside, immediately, as soon as we exit the doors, we're friends again. We go out for coffee or whatever. And I'm gonna miss those days, and I'm it's not about missing being on this dais. It's been a blast, and it's been fun, and time to hand it on to somebody else. So I want to thank each and every one of you for all the help, the guidance, and the fantastic work you've all done, and that's including my colleagues as well. And to those who I previously worked with, George Chapchin and Commissioner Gregorian, Commissioner Stepanian, if you all remember, for a brief stint, joined our commission, but to really everyone. And I really want to thank Frank Quintero for entrusting me with this position for such a long time. Thank you, everyone.
I want to just note that Friday evening, July 18th from 7 to 10, that Cope Studios is an artist in our community, is having a grand opening of her studio. She's got studios available for other artists' work. There will be food trucks and a raffle and art for sale. That address is 926 Western Avenue in Glendale. And again, it's the Cope Studios, if you wanted to Google that, but Friday evening. Also, I had the opportunity to see the formal lighting of the diver sign on the Mona building a couple weeks ago, and was glad to see our incoming councilwoman as well was in attendance there, along with staff, and it was fun. We got to ride around an open-air bus around Glendale and see some of the other lights in Glendale, so I encourage you all to take a look at that. We're looking forward to Mona opening its doors here in Glendale. And finally, also an event coming up on Saturday, August 2nd, a Walk Bike Glendale, one of our organizations here in the community that supports pedestrian safety and bike riding within the city of Glendale, is looking at doing a tour of our utility, our Beyond the Box utility mural program. So they'll be doing a leisurely walk. You can find out more information by visiting them on Facebook. They've got an event set up. So again, it's Walk Bike Glendale. It's Saturday, August 2nd at 10 a.m., meeting at the Chess Park, which is on Brand between California and Wilson Streets. And I also want to say that Commissioner Kevanian, you will be missed, and thank you for all of your thoughtful and soulful contributions to the Commission throughout the years. It's been a great pleasure working with you.
Just one last thing. Well, it's always goodbyes are very sad, and I don't like them. But on a good note, I need to talk about Saturday's cruise night. We have a wonderful event that's happening in our city. It's a major event, beautiful cars, car lovers, and those who don't know about cars, you can come and learn so much about the history of cars and the heritage we have inherited. Anyhow, wonderful evening, wonderful night. Take your families and come to the cruise night, and we wish all the best for Commissioner Kevanian.
Commissioner Lee, you have a follow-up? Ms. Vartanian?
I just have a few words to say. As you know, this is my last commission meeting with you all, and I just wanted to thank Cindy Cleary for her leadership, the commission for your vision, and community organizations for their insight over the last 2 years. We've done a lot. It's really been a pleasure working with the commission to develop the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan and establish a vision for the city's investment in the arts. I think it's a big deal, and I commend you all. And I'm confident, and I leave confident knowing that the city's passion and commitment to the arts will result in a renaissance for the community for years to come, and I'm proud to have been part of it with you all. So thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 7, written communications.
And we have none. So with that, and as Commissioner Lee had expressed, in adjourning with our thoughts and condolences for the family members and those involved with the Malaysian airliner downing. You're adjourned.